Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Webster with SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Thank you for tuning into another one of our conversations at home. I also quickly wanted to remind everyone that we are continuing to raise money through our COVID-19 fund for SAG-AFTRA members who have been affected by all of the closed productions and who are currently out of work. You can find details on this within the video description below. I'm really excited today to be joined by Chris Sullivan, who you know is Toby in This Is Us, but he's done so many other great roles and had a wonderful career. I'm really thrilled that you could join us today. I wanted to ask kind of how your day-to-day has been with everything right now.
Yeah, the day-to-day has been when the first set of restrictions, the travel restrictions came down. My wife and I were actually overseas and we were on vacation. I was between jobs. I was between the wrap of This Is Us and the start of another job. And so we're trying to get a vacation in there. And so we came home and immediately quarantined ourselves for 2 weeks before all of the real shelter at home stuff happened. So we were already quarantining for 2 weeks. So we're entering our fourth week of quarantine. And now it's starting to get a little surreal. Now the time is both flying by and dragging very, very slowly. So it's an interesting kind of place to find ourselves, but we have plenty to do. We have a baby on the way. And so we are nesting, doing a lot of nesting, getting the house ready. We are trying to figure out how we can be of service to our friends, family, and communities by figuring out how to Zoom in for charitable events and raise money for the SAG Foundation, raise money for the Actors Fund. I am currently spending quite a bit of my day on an app called Cameo, where I'm doing custom greetings for people and raising money that way. So we're starting to get our routine. We exercise. We have the dogs who need to be walked and played with. The dogs seem to be little presence machines. Like whatever you think you need to be doing, they snap you out of that and remind you to come back to the moment. So we're starting to get a good routine together.
That's so wonderful. And yeah, I saw that you're doing a lot of Cameo videos specifically to help out those in the gig economy who have lost all of their work right now and probably are having a tougher time applying for unemployment and going through that whole process. Why was it really important for you to kind of support that specific part of the industry, especially because, you know, you've worked in the gig economy as an actor a lot?
Yeah. I mean, our employment is already so delicate. You know, things fall through all the time. Jobs come and go. I am currently in a position where I have the rare opportunity to have job security, which is a rare phrase to use in our business. And so, you know, I'm in a position now to take that gratitude and that fortunate scenario and kind of return any kind of favor that I can, whether it's, you know, and a lot of it is just continuing to support the people in my sphere that I was already kind of patronizing or you know, it's people like the person who walks our dogs from time to time, the man who cuts Rachel's hair, our gardener, like these small things that we didn't really think about. This whole thing has kind of a trickle down effect to where certain people can't afford to now pay the people that they've been paying. And so we're trying to continue to pay those people the money that we would pay them since we can afford it at this moment. And then the money that I'm raising will go to places like the Actors Fund. We made a donation to the Actors Fund. We'll probably make a donation to the SAG Foundation. And then there are people in my community who I know depend on. There's a woman in our community. Her name's Jan, and she's a dog sitter. And she's an older woman who takes care of her husband. And all of her income is through dog sitting, but now all the dogs are at home. So what's Jan going to do? And so we continue to try to send a little bit of money her way. And it's important that if we each take care of our own family, our friends, our community, then I think there's enough to go around. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And thank you so much for doing all of that and thinking far outside of your own circle as well. It's really important, I think, for everybody to be doing that right now. I wanted to pivot on to talking about the show a little bit, and because you mentioned that idea of, you do have that very great luxury right now to have that job security, because Dan Fogelman has always had this idea that This Is Us would last 6 seasons, and he's always been very adamant about it. And I was interested in the way that has allowed you to arc out the character of Toby and kind of understand his journey, and not just where he is in the show right now, but where he's going differently to when you're usually working in television.
Yeah, it's not even so much that they know that the show wants to go 6 seasons. It's also that our writers have broken out the story that far down the road and are able to come to each of us and let us know what the grand plan is. Even if some of the details along the way may change, we know obviously where the characters have started, and we know the ending to the show. We know the place where we're trying to land. And so it's a rare opportunity to fully develop a character in a way that I wouldn't normally. But the other side of that is some of that information is helpful. Some of it is not helpful. Some of it I do not want to know. Because these characters have no idea what's coming. These characters don't know what the future is. So in certain instances, knowing the future is not as helpful. I then have to forget it. I then have to not play the ending. I then have to ignore that information and come back to what this moment is. So it can be a double-edged sword from time to time.
Yeah. On the flip side to that, I was interested in some of the aspects that we've discovered about Toby are things where we actually learn more about his past, such as season 3, where we were learning more about, his struggles with depression. And I was interested in how that kind of pivoted the way that you built him up as a character to that point, and whether it forced you to kind of change your mind about anything that you'd already decided about who he was as a person and his backstory, and the way that you had been playing up him up until then.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, because depression, in my experience, is not all encompassing. It's not ever present. It comes and goes. There can be a cycle of it. So there are certain ways a person may act, or I can just speak for myself, they're because part of the lows that I experience as an individual are also counterbalanced by extreme highs. And so those highs and lows and everything in between can all coexist. So being that Toby's depression and history with depression has revealed itself, it didn't really bother me as far as like some of the other upbeat choices, the high choices that I had played earlier. It actually just made them make more sense as far as that goes. There is a certain for people who the television world, right? You have different directors that come in for each episode, and they are given their episode, and they know what's happened in the past in the show. They may or may not know what's coming in the future, and so there was a delicate level of like having to try to stay the course when new directors come and say, "Yeah, you have a new baby." It's just exciting. That's just exciting. Be excited. Be happy. Be upbeat. Where's the upbeat, excited father? And I knew what was coming with Toby as far as his difficulty and his fear and his anxiety around being a new father, especially to a son that had an impairment with his hearing. And so it's hard sometimes to remember that Dan tells us all, like, the character better than anyone. You've been playing them now for 4 years. Their backstory, their inner life, and so stay true to that. And so it's been hard to kind of stay true to that storyline, which is a true story. Like the fathers that I've encountered over the last year. My wife and I have had 13 babies come into our life over the last year through friends and family, 2 sets of twins, 5 trips to the NICU, like home births, hospital births, like every combination you can think of. But on a couple of occasions, the mothers and fathers have expressed, this lack of magic that everyone tells you you're supposed to feel. People want to put their own expectations or their own emotions onto other people's experiences. And they say, oh, you've had a baby. You must feel this. You must be so excited. You must be so full of joy. Oh, that's so exciting. And there's not a lot of room for other things, for fear, for anxiety, for doubt, for the balance, because the both things exist. So it's been a wild ride over the last couple seasons to play all those things.
Yeah. Speaking of that balance, one of the things that you do really beautifully with this character is, he allows himself to feel setbacks, but he always comes at everything with optimism, with hopefulness. And then you've also got like the comedy that you manage to intersperse in all of the moments. Do you find it very easy with the writing and with who he is as a character to have those different elements come together in one place?
Yeah, I mean, the writers on our show have balanced all of the characters extremely well. It's part of the attraction that our show has for people is that all of the characters have light and dark. All of the characters have up and down. They all have joy and sadness, and that's what people can relate to. No matter who you are, there's a balance, and so it's been incredibly easy because our writers are so good.
Yeah. And one of the things as well with the journey that, Toby has been going through this season is the journey of parenthood that you were talking about. And there's been disconnect between them. So how did you and Chrissy figure out how you wanted to play that together, ultimately keeping the core of their relationship so when they find their way back, it feels very believable, but still having that distance in between?
Well, again, like the writing is so good. Everything is right there on the page for us. And Chrissy and I have developed a relationship over the first 3 seasons. That base, that core, that connection is there. So as the writers take us in different directions, it automatically feels like tension. It automatically feels like the gears are grinding. So we arrive in the moment with what the writers have given us, and we rest in the fact that we've built a foundation that is strong enough to play all of those beats out.
Yeah. Do you find at this point in the show that the writers and Dan and the whole team really create arcs for your character, knowing your strengths and really knowing where they can push you and take the character and also allowing you to have that input as well?
Yeah, I think a big part of the overall vibe that you feel on our show is, one, you're watching a group of people who genuinely enjoy each other. We are having fun. We respect each other as artists, and that doesn't necessarily just go for the actors. That goes for the writers, for the crew, for the higher ups. Dan Fogelman sets a culture on our show of collaboration and love and acceptance and compassion. And so when the writers are all, present, and they're on set, and they're paying attention, and they've left their room open to us, and we can go in there and talk, and a lot of I mean, all of the stories you've seen are the writers infusing themselves into this story, but there are also some of our storylines that have been inserted based on conversations that we've had with the writers' room. And so as the seasons go on, they're also seeing what works. They're hearing our voices, they're learning our sense of humor, they're feeling our rhythms, and they can start to write for us, to us, and they make us look they make us look so good because everything is united. Like they are giving us characters with all of this depth and all of this evolution, but they're also they're putting clothes on us that fit perfectly. That it's well tailored. So.
Also, similarly with that, obviously you've gotten to know this character so well, and I was interested in the way that your preparation process when you get the scripts has shifted and evolved from when you first sat down season 1 playing this new character to now when you come in, you really are able to just find those beats and rhythms of him much more fluidly.
Yeah, now there's enough backstory that outside of any long monologue or anything, the moments are there, the beats are there, the relationships have been established, the character is well-rounded enough that it's much easier in season 4 and 5 and 6 to just arrive on set, look at the words, and be there.
Yeah. And you were touching on this a little bit before when you were talking about, the writers and the producers and the camaraderie that exists on set. And I know for you, having been on the other side where you've been a guest actor or a recurring role in other shows, that you understand what it feels like to walk onto a set where everybody knows each other so intrinsically, mm-hmm. and to figure out and navigate how everybody works in a moment. And I was curious about the importance for you in making sure that people feel welcomed in, that they feel part of the process, not just across the cast, but also I believe that you do that with the crew at every level as well.
Yeah, I'll tell this story. I won't name the film or the director. But I was a young actor in New York, and I had one scene in a big movie and it was across from two of the biggest actors in the history of our business. And I sat in a honey wagon outside, which a honey wagon, for anyone who doesn't know, is a trailer that has probably 7 or 8 different compartments, and they're like basically little jail cells. They're smaller than jail cells. and there's enough room to sit down and a mirror to get ready and get changed. And I sat in there for 11 hours. And I was playing a repairman, and I was dressed as a repairman. And when I was finally called to set at the end of the day, I walked on set, they handed me my little toolbox, and I was waiting around for a minute. And I had already been chased away from craft services twice by the craft services people. They're like, excuse me, no, this is for the cast and crew. And I'm like, I'm in the movie. I know I'm dressed I'm a character in the movie. I arrived on set, and the first AD was like, can I help you? I was like, no. He's like, where are you supposed to be? I'm like, right here. I'm in the movie. Can someone tell everyone that I have a seat? In the meantime, I'm freaking out because these 2 huge actors are about to come through the door yelling at me, the repairman. I'm like, what's happening? And so when people come on our set, I make sure I go out of my way to welcome them, to introduce them around, to hopefully make them feel at home so that they can do their work. Like, we all want people who are showing up on set for one day, for one scene, to be able to maneuver freely and to to do their best work, because that's what we want. If everyone does their best work, we have a better show. And so I think we do a pretty good job of making people feel welcome. I hope we do. And so, yeah, that type of, it only benefits everybody if everyone is comfortable.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, having played this character for several seasons now, the way in which you think you've evolved your craft as an actor and what you've really learned throughout that process about yourself.
Oh, geez. I walk for myself, I walk a very fine line between preparedness and flexibility. I prepare to a point, and I personally need to leave a lot of room for flexibility, because if I get too much of an idea in my head about how this is going to go, how I'm going to deliver these lines, what the blocking is going to look like, what it should be like, and then I arrive on set and none of those things are going to happen, then I have actually done no preparation. I have actually done myself harm. And so I try to, when I prepare, leave as much mental and emotional space for change and for flexibility and for improvisation. And I don't mean improvisation in that I will say whatever I want and ignore the script. I mean, I need to be able to arrive. I learned this on the Nick, especially working on the Nick with Steven Soderbergh, because he is so fluid and because he arrives on set and he knows what he wants to do. And then as soon as he gets there, if that's not going to work, he just changes the plan and goes a different direction. And you need to be able to pivot and go with him. And that's become a huge, that's where I've gone. I've started in this very rote, prepared, come in with my choices, or come in with my choice, and have evolved into a person who arrives with hopefully a dozen choices and an open mind and ears for listening. And that's been kind of, I think, the biggest evolution over the course of everything.
Yeah. Is that similar to the way that you walk into an audition room, or what is it that you feel that you need to do to really feel prepared and in the moment?
No, auditions are different. Like auditions, I show up with a strong choice. I'm going to do it that way, no matter what. I have to go in with a different mindset. That doesn't mean because I need to walk in, and if there are 4 people in the room, I'm still going to make that choice. If there's one person, I'm still going to make that. If the room is huge, if the room is small, no matter what the layout is, no matter what the scenario is, I need to come in with a strong choice and enjoy my opportunity to do my job. That doesn't mean that after that first take is over and the casting director wants to make adjustments, wants to try something different, that in that moment is when I start to re-prepare. So I let go of everything that I did. I don't take anything that is said after that personally, because it doesn't mean that I've done it wrong. It just means that they might want to see if I'm capable of taking direction, if I'm capable of making a different choice, this casting director may know something about the way the director works that I don't. And so I then, in that moment, do my best to pivot. And that's where I kind of use the same type of process that I would working on This Is Us or a film or anything like that when it comes to flexibility. But going in initially, I try to go in with firm choices, strong choices, even if they're out there or a little off.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking about the show and also your process and your craft. And thank you for everything you're doing right now to pay it forward to other communities. I think it's an important thing for us all to be doing right now.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. Thanks.